workers or whatever field that we are working on. We are very much delighted to have to organize this webinar. So this webinar is organized by 4 joint collaborations of Humanitarian Forum Indonesia, Human Initiative, Asian Disaster and Reduction Network, and International Council on Voluntary Agencies, where we have also support from our dear colleagues, Muhammadiyah COVID-19 Command Center or Muhammadiyah Disaster Management Center, and Doctors for You from India. So I would like to also give thanks to all of you that are participating in this Zoom, and also to all of you that are watching via social media accounts that is going on live as of now, like in ADRN's Facebook page or YouTube of ICVA and Humanitarian Forum Indonesia, and those who are also supporting this webinar. Hopefully we can have a great discussion and collaboration in the future. We also have Mada and Lina, those that will help us doing the sign interpretation. So for those who would need it, you can pin their videos so you can get to see the sign interpretation. This webinar will be fully conducted in English, so please let me know if you are Indonesian colleagues, my dear Indonesian colleagues, if you have trouble in understanding the contents, please let me know via chat. You can have a chat with me privately. If you are also not familiar with Zoom webinar, you can see that you will have 2 features that will be very interesting for our discussion, which is chat, where you can give chat like informal communication to all the panelists, or maybe extend to all panelists and attendees, where you can say hi to your colleagues, and maybe you want to share something. But please do not use this chat feature for asking the questions for the speakers, because we'll have another feature, which is a Q&A feature. You can click on that, and please send or submit your questions directly into Q&A feature. So all the speakers also, I would like to recommend you, sometimes you can also click on Q&A features and see all the questions that are submitted by the participants, and then you can choose whether you want to answer it directly or by live, or just type the answer, and then all of the participants, including us, the panelists, can see whether some questions have already been answered or not. So yeah, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Amot Dixit, our beloved Sir Amot. He is the chairman of Asian Disaster Reduction and Response Network, to deliver his remarks and also to welcome us in this webinar. The time is yours, Sir Amot, please.
Thank you, dear. Thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the participants, all those who are viewing this through this Zoom and others. Please accept, I'm Amod Dixit. Please accept my greetings on behalf of the Asian Disaster Reduction and Response Network. As dear told, this is one of the organizers of this webinar series, together with Humanitarian Forum Indonesia, Human Initiative, and the International Council on Voluntary Agencies, ICVA. This is the second of the 5 webinars that we all together are planning to host. One was there last month, and the theme is the general theme is the civil society organization's role and its sustainability in the new normal age. As the regional network, since 2002, ADR has rapidly evolved from an awareness-focused network to a regional voice. and advocacy in capacity building. And its main aim has been to promote coordination, information sharing, collaboration among the civil society organizations, among the membership, and also beyond the membership, the stakeholders as a whole, for effective and efficient disaster reduction and response in this Asia Pacific region. In this webinar, we altogether would like to expand our outreach and facilitate and widen the knowledge sharing among CSOs, among all stakeholders in this region. And our secretariat, ADRN Secretariat, will continue to facilitate such meetings of this or that form. We have been doing the face-to-face meeting at the national level and at the regional or international level, but and also participated in various forums. But now in this time, we will be facilitating more of such webinars together with our thematic hubs. The thematic hubs of ADR are spread in different countries, and some of our members are leading those. Well, this is a critical time. This is a critical time, and we know that it is not very easy. Uh, but then, together with our national and international partners, we are delivering, we are working at the front line, learning and adapting to the emerging new situation of uncertainties. Uncertainties of this new type of problem, but also related uncertainties of limits, limits of funding, limits of opportunity, but then at the same time we are trying to bring what is available, what opportunities are there, the opportunities of working in a new way, trying to bring in the new knowledge, the science and technology and innovation to the remotest place, to the most vulnerable people, to those that have fallen through the safety nets, to those who are the elderly, the women and the children, the handicapped, the helpless people, the illiterate, especially in rural areas. For us, these form the first mile, not the last mile. These form the first mile, and they are our priorities to go to those who need us the most. In this context, is this webinar. It has three objectives. It wants to understand the manifestation of the localization during the COVID-19 pandemic, regarding how do we translate the meanings of the grand bargain policies and the documents associated with that, and also with that of the standing committee, the IASC guidance. The second one is recognize the challenges and implementation strategies in humanitarian works transformation needed to carry out in facing the new normal age at the regional level. And the thirdly, share there are good practices, share the good practices and capacities of national and local NGOs, CSOs in transforming their humanitarian works in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. This time we are going to hear from three leaders of three organizations, the stalwarts who have been doing amazing work at the front line in terms of coordination, in terms of services, and also organizational leadership. We all, these organizers, we all know each other, and we have worked together. We are friends. We work very closely. Nonetheless, allow me to express my gratitude to the leadership of Humanitarian Forum Indonesia, the Human Initiative, and the International Council on Voluntary Agencies, ICVA, for this joint work, yet another episode of joint work. We look forward to working together, and I thank also the audience for joining us in this web forum from across the globe, and welcome you to all to participate actively. I look forward to a very fruitful discussion and knowledge sharing that are sure to be useful for all in our humanitarian works and efforts. So thank you very much, and thank you, dear, and Qingrui, over to you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dr. Amot, for welcoming us and then give your remarkable speech. So we can also know what is the expectation of this webinar and what we will discuss later on. Thank you very much for your time and then your contribution. So I would like to move on before we start the discussion. We will also have Pak Surya Rahman Muhammad, the Executive Director of Humanitarian Forum Indonesia, that would like also to give his remark and then also to welcome us in this webinar. The time is yours, Pak Surya, please.
Thank you, Day. Good afternoon, Dr. Ahmad, Chairman of ADRRN, all speaker, Jeremy, Dr. Rahmawati, Dr. Ravikant, Qingrui as moderator, and for you all, greeting from Jakarta, and I hope everybody here is safe and healthy. On behalf of the organizer, which are Humanitarian Forum Indonesia, Human Initiative, ADRRN, and ICVA, we welcome all of you in this webinar where we can deeply discuss on the humanitarian work transformation in the new normal age. This is the second out of the 5 webinars that we are going to host, where the first one we have conducted on 29 July 2020. Together with the organizer, we realized that during the pandemic situation, everybody is affected, including us as CSO. We also realized that there is not much discuss happening with the CSO role and the great contribution in the preventing and the dealing with the COVID-19. This pandemic definitely affected the way we work and strategizing our sustainability plan. This situation may be the first time for some people to deal with the new habits and the multi-hazard. Given all this background, we as the organization are very much looking forward to dialogue that we will have and how we can learn from each other. Again, I would like to highlight that this webinar is also organized in the spirit of the commemoration of the World Humanitarian Day, which was in every 19th of August. This message this year is to build a humanitarian spirit among us during the crisis time, and also to share or to be inspired the real life heroes who are fighting with this COVID-19 despite all this hardship. At last, I wish you have a good discussion and inspire another one. Thank you, and back to you, Dave.
Thank you very much, Pak Surya, for your excellent opening remarks. So just echoing what Pak Surya has mentioned, that we are in the celebration of World Humanitarian Day. Happy World Humanitarian Day for us, all the humanitarians all over the world, and particularly for we are in this Zoom or in the social media live. Echoing what Surya has mentioned on his last statement, that let's be inspired each other. I hope that this discussion will bring on that expectation. So let's move on to the discussion. We will have a discussion led by our moderator, which is Ms. Qingrui Huang, the acting regional representation of ICVA for Asia and the Pacific. She will be so kindly to introduce us to the speakers that we have for this webinar. So over to you, Qingrui.
Thank you very much, dear, for the excellent introduction. So this is Qingrui, as dear already introduced. I will be your moderator for the next 1 hour. And so as Dr. Ahmad and also Mr. Surya has already introduced for the objective of this webinar, we're going to talk a little bit about the transformations in COVID and how NGOs are adapting to it. Now, when we talk about transformation, I don't know about your guys, but at least with me, I really feel that most of the discussion, when we hear the word transformation, is is the transformation of the international system that is well established, and that where we all, I mean, most of the NGOs all work in, because that's where the donors are, that's where the fundings are, that's where the formal coordinations taking place. And then I also feel that for the past few years, the urge for the systems to transform has been there for a long time. And every time when we have a disaster in the region, the agenda for transformation, more recently led by the discussion on localizations, would be moving forward. That's certainly. But in the meanwhile, that forward moving would also kind of be bounced back a few steps because of the resistance to the system itself. So so now the question a lot of people have been asking is whether this pandemic would really make the difference, would really make the system leap forward to the transformation that we're really looking forward to, a real local-led transformation, a real power shift, or not, or are we still talking, about this, as it goes, and it still will take a long time. Another thing that is in my mind is that in Asia, I really feel the transformation is beyond the system, the formal system that we're talking about, especially in the pandemic. There are so many other actors that are playing a really, a significant role in this, and there are so many more new approaches or innovative ways to address humanitarian actions that we perhaps should pay more attention to. And in this webinar, I also wanted to cover a little bit on that, in the sense how NGOs are working their ways, in addition to the formal system, to adapt themselves in order to address the needs of the humanitarian actions. So, so without further ado, I would like to introduce to you the three panelists for this session. I will go by alphabet orders. So first is Dr. Rahmawati Husein. She is the Vice Chair of Muhammadiyah Disaster Management Center. Amma also has many other hats, among which two of the very relevant ones are the advisory board members of Indonesia National Disaster Management Agencies, and also a board member of UN CERF. Next is Dr. Ravikant Singh. He's founder of Doctors for You India. As well as Mr. Jeremy Wellard, head of humanitarian coordination with International Council of Voluntary Agencies, short for ICVA. So now, for now, I would give the floor to each of them to have a short introduction about themselves, as well as to the organizations they are working on, so that to all the audience, they can have a better idea on whom they are interacting with. After which we will go straight into discussions. So floor is yours. Maybe you could start as as that order. First to Amma, please.
Okay. Thank you, Qingrui. I try to make it short and share the screen if it's possible. Where is that? Okay, so the can I share a screen? If not, I just want to tell the Muhammadiyah organization is one of the oldest organization in Indonesia. It was established in 1912 and is one of the largest faith-based organization with estimated 35 million members. And Muhammadiyah has many institutions such as the, let me share. Okay, so Muhammadiyah has present in all provinces in Indonesia, in 34 provinces, in 417 districts, and also in sub-district at the village level and community level. And Muhammadiyah is like government within government, so we also have the agencies like ministry and department. So we have 20 council or agency and 7 wing organization, including youth women, students, and also the Boy Scout. And Muhammadiyah been having many social and educational activities like establishing orphanages, elderly nursery home, and then we have also saving credit unions, and also the mosque and boarding school. We have 19,000 school and offer 170 university and colleges, and also 457 clinics. I'll just share one more slide that since the COVID response, Muhammadiyah set up the COVID Command Center that's at the national level and at also provincial and district level. At the national level, the Muhammadiyah COVID Command Center, the task force consists of all the councils related, but mainly the backbone is the MDMC, the Muhammadiyah Disaster Management Center, and also the Health Agency of Muhammadiyah, since we have 437 health facilities. But the one of the also important is the Agency of Tabjeh or Religious Affairs, because it will give the guideline of the followers how to respond the fasting month, the festive like Idul Fitri and Idul Adha is the festive, and the sermons, and also the schools agency and as well as university agencies and the philanthropic agencies, and also the community empowerment. So this is one of the backbone for responding the COVID Command Center within the Muhammadiyah organization. Okay.
Mbak Alma, sorry, somebody asked whether you can like slide showing the screen, your PPT.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, this one?
Yep, great. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, let me, this is the institution that we do have. So the why institution is very important, because it provides the human resources and also the resource mobilization within the network of the organization. So board, institution, human resources, long history and network, providing financial, material, skilled people and experiences that are enabling environment and precondition for the effective localization. So I want to stay, and this is the structure of Muhammadiyah COVID Command Center. And the last slide is how the network works. So the central board is overseeing the national task force, and then we also established the provincial task force and district task force, and Muhammadiyah member in an institution and general. And we also work with the national government task force, ministry and agency, and professional government and district government. And we also collaborate or have cooperative with cluster Humanitarian Forum, of course, we are the members, and then the Sejajar is network of NGOs that respond to COVID. And also we work as well with donors, both within Indonesia and donors from overseas. I'll offer to you, Qingrui. This is a short introduction of what Muhammadiyah and how the structure to respond to COVID.
Thank you very much, Alma, for the excellent presentations. I would give the floor then to Dr. Ravikant for his introduction as well. Dr. Ravikant, floor is yours.
Thanks. Thank Qingrui. So I'm Dr. Ravikant from Doctors for You, India. We are just like Muhammadiyah. We are also a medical organization formed in 2007, just 12, 13-year-old. Currently, we are working in more than 18 states across India with around 350 staff. Our key focus is on public health system strengthening, basically for urban, poor, and rural area, along with the government. We try to strengthen the public system. The second is, which is very well known, is disaster risk reduction and response work, where we provide the immediate medical relief across CERF region. We responded to Nepal earthquake also in a big way. For almost 9 months we worked there, and then for a smaller period in Rohingya crisis at Cox's Bazar also. And the third is community development initiative, where we work on the education and malnutrition program. So this is the, you can see the COVID, in this COVID crisis, we are working in almost 12 states. We have established 5 isolation center in 5 different states, and we are treating COVID patient at our various COVID care center and COVID hospital. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ravikant. Indeed, very frontline work of your organization. Last but not least, I would give the floor to Jeremy for your introduction.
Thank you, Qingrui, and good afternoon to all panelists and guests today. So my name is Jeremy Wellard. I'm the head of humanitarian coordination for ICVA, and until recently, I was regional representative here in Asia Pacific. So very happy to see some familiar faces on the panel and in the attendee list today. ICVA is a global consortium of humanitarian NGOs. Founded in 1962, we have about 130 members globally. And our work is really around supporting principled and effective humanitarian action for NGOs and between NGOs and their partners globally. We work in 4 main focus areas, which are forced migration, humanitarian coordination, humanitarian financing, and an area we call navigating change, which is really about helping to understand how the humanitarian system is changing and how these impacts affect NGOs in their work. And ICVA works through 3 regional hubs, one of which is in Bangkok, covering Asia and Pacific. We also have representation in Africa region and in MENA region, and we now have a new representation in Latin America and the Caribbean. So we're moving to a more global focus, and particularly supporting operational NGOs, but also national level NGO networks, which I think we'll be talking a little bit about today as well. So that's all for me. Thanks, Qingrui.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Please stay on for a bit because I'm going to start with you right away for the first question. So I was asking my colleagues behind the scene to put up the 4 questions, if possible. But we can start already from the first question, which is, what are the most significant transformation in your organization during COVID-19? And I want Jeremy to start with this question because he was recently in Asia as the regional rep with ICVA, but now has a more global overview of how NGOs are doing in COVID response. So maybe I will start with him to give us an overview. What are the transformation he has observed in his role? Jeremy, please.
Thank you. Well, I'd start first of all by saying that so far in the response to COVID-19, I think what we've seen is that this has not been a major disruptor of the humanitarian system as some of us may have expected at the start. What we're really looking at the moment is about compounding existing needs in many areas where vulnerabilities were already high. And if anything, this has made the work of humanitarian organizations both more challenging and also more vital. And COVID-19 is now impacting vulnerable communities across the globe, in refugee camps, in disaster displacement areas, in conflict zones. And many of these communities are facing the impacts of the virus. And so there's real challenges emerging as humanitarian services are scaled back or suspended, access to healthcare or other services is disrupted, and particularly issues around food insecurity and other raising concerns. And so facing all of this at the global level, we haven't seen a transformation in the sector as I would see it. And planning to respond to COVID-19 actually has reinforced existing systems. It's reinforced the centrality of the UN, the role of larger humanitarian donors, the way funding flows, the way decisions are made. The global humanitarian response plan was very much a top-down response to the crisis. And although there's been some improvement in recent revisions, particularly linked to better national level planning, the appeal is still somewhat disconnected from operational realities, as we may hear from other panelists on the discussion today. There has been some good work done in developing common services, in supporting logistics and passenger movement to allow staff rotation and medevac and supplies and logistics. This has largely benefited also the international actors involved, and I think this has been discussed in some sectors that the support has been mobilized to support international actors, perhaps not to the same level at the national in the national context. And the Interagency Standing Committee, the global interagency platform that sets humanitarian policy and guidance, has been very active throughout this crisis, issuing guidance on a wide range of topics, from localization to emergency preparedness to mental health and psychosocial support. And so we're demonstrating that the international policy mechanisms can still develop adaptive policy, and perhaps this is even easier when people are stuck at home in front of their computers instead of traveling around the world or around the region. So by and large, I'd say, though, from a global perspective, the system is still functioning, but there have been, if not transformations, at least some evolutions of the system, and hopefully there are more to come. I just want to quickly mention 4 of these. The first one is around community engagement. I would say that in the COVID response, community engagement has moved from being a side issue to being a central priority in every response. That doesn't mean it's always done perfectly, but it's very much universally on the table as a key focus area. We've been talking about putting people at the center for many years, but the COVID emergency has made this very real, because addressing the pandemic is as much about communication and engaging affected population as it is about delivery of assistance. The second issue I think that is moving is around duty of care. I think the challenges of providing duty of care for all humanitarian staff, not only international staff, have very much been brought front and center. And providing of protective equipment, training, ensuring adequate medical care, insurances, many other related issues are now being discussed very seriously throughout the sector up to the highest levels. The third point I'd mention is around funding. We've seen some significant movements by donors to show flexibility and to be responsive to the need to adapt existing humanitarian funds to the COVID context. And there's been significant joint advocacy by NGOs and the UN towards this, which has been a very positive step. There's also some exciting potential innovations in funding. For example, allowing NGOs to access the UN CERF funds, which has just recently happened for the first time, and that's really quite groundbreaking. Also now discussions around establishing regional pooled funds as a new type of funding mechanism. And the last point I'd raise is that's a significant change that's underway, is the shift towards remote working and remote assistance. We see now a large number of support staff are working remotely. Previously, we may have expected people to be deploying regularly, to be traveling around. Now we're actually able to see that many of these tasks can be done remotely. I think this is fundamentally going to shift how we see our work into the future. And also, due to the shift to the online modality, I think conversations have opened up. We've got a level of engagement from the sector that's far more significant and broad. And in many cases, it's great to see that new voices are actually being heard, participating in discussions and raising questions, and even sharing diverse opinions from a whole range of countries and regions with each other. This cross-fertilization of ideas has been really positive to see. And I think this is another trend that we hope can continue and we can capitalize on. Thanks, Qingrui.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. I think the message is really rich, and I really appreciate for that. Some of your points, I guess, I would come back to in the next few minutes. So now let me turn to just very briefly, if everyone could mute, the microphone. So let me turn to Amma. For the same questions, what are the most significant transformation to your work, Amma, in your organization?
Thank you. I may highlight some of the Jeremy that already mentioned that the changing is the way we respond. In usually what humanitarian, especially in Indonesia, we respond more on natural disaster, and natural disaster is usually in particular area in some particular time. But with COVID, it changed the way we work. So it's all over the places, all over the world actually. But in Indonesia, it's we also have to respond nationally in every part of Indonesia. And then the second one, we never know for how long. So what we really see the transformation is transformation the way we manage, we organize, and the way we set up the structure, because we cannot do it like the natural or responding the natural disaster. Then we have to really count on the resources that we have. Not only the financial resources, but it's also human resources, because we have to stay in a very long time that we never know how it's gonna end. And then the second one I want to respond is, although we right now facing COVID in Indonesia, we still have other natural hazards. So the multiple hazard is also transforming we work, because we cannot go to the places that we respond. So we have to work with the local responder, the MDMC at the provincial district area, because the past month we have flash flood, flooding, eruption, earthquake. Yeah, so it's really transform we work. And then the second one is the leadership. The leadership is also very important. In NGO like mine, we have the involvement of the national board of the Muhammadiyah, who overseeing the overall organization. The support, the direction is very important. In COVID, we really need, because this is the issue on like to avoid or to limit the spread of the COVID virus. So it's very important, the role of the leadership to be listened, to be heard by the follower. The leadership is very crucial. So we really work on the leadership. And then the third, like what Jeremy mentioned, is funding. Funding is also the quite different, because in responding natural disaster, we usually have to fundraising in particular time, but for COVID we have to fundraise in very long time. And then we also working with the international donors to get the more flexibility in supporting us, because we work throughout Indonesia. And then we also need to get the resource mobilization. So the management, the structure, and then the humanitarian issues, multiple hazard, funding, and then also the coordination, because that's also the issue, the work that we have to operate. We always have to get involved or to work closely with the government, because the government is the one who has the authority in designing what the situation, the policy, and we have to follow. Sometimes we against the government policy, because, for example, to open the schools, since Muhammadiyah have 1,000 schools we do not open, although the local government allowing or asking to open. So this kind of work we need to there's a different way of working, because we have to deal with the different type of coordination, with the different type of the dynamic of the policy changes, and then also in collaboration with different cluster and NGO. I think I'll stop from now. I will provide the detail later.
Yeah, thank you very much, Amma, for your overview. I think that's very interesting. I will come back to you, as you said. But for now, let me also ask the same question to Dr. Ravikant, please.
Thanks. The most significant transformation, if you ask me, I want to highlight 3-4 points. The first one is coordination. So the COVID pandemic has given us the opportunity to work very closely with the government. Our organization was not very well known in India, I would say, at least among the government people. But this has given great opportunity. In fact, out of the 5 COVID center which we are running, in fact, 2 was inaugurated by Chief Minister and 1 by the Union Minister of State. And they are working very closely with us, and similarly the coordination with the local the support from the community is also very much improved now. But the best part is the help and support we are getting from the government of India as well as the various state government. The second thing is regarding funding. Being a human medical organization, we have received a lot of funding for the COVID response. But if you see our other non-COVID project like malnutrition, tuberculosis, or for the cancer patient, it hampered a lot. Like as Jeremy said, that because of the movement restriction, and so we are like the most challenging thing for us is this lockdown. So the other non-COVID program has suffered a lot, and in fact right now we are in the phase of recovery, and we are trying to restart our programs like immunization, maternal and child health, and other tuberculosis program also. So now coming to the third point, that is the leadership. So this is another, I would say, the second most important thing which we see the transformational changes. In most of the places, our lower, like the second level staff, they are now at the central command, and they are managing the whole response in the particular, sometime in 1 or 2 states. So leadership has definitely the leadership skills of our staff has improved tremendously in last few months. And in fact, right now there is one inauguration going on in Bengaluru by Chief Minister, but I am sitting comfortably and doing webinar here because my team and the few of the members, they have developed very good skill set to manage and work in this disaster. And the fourth thing is the use of technology. So earlier, I also personally thought technology is not that helpful or think about the basic, but actually for program management and this review meeting, like now every day, like we are using the Zoom, Skype, or Google Hangout and following, and the skill set of our staff has also improved on using these IT based and other technological tool to improve that. So these are the 3-4 thing I would say: better coordination with the government, decentralized development of decentralized leadership, the increased funding for the COVID, but decrease for the non-COVID one, and the use of technology. These are the key transformational changes I see in my organization.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. Very exciting to hear all these very positive change. Stay with me for a bit, because for the next question, I would like to start with you, which is how is localization impacting your organization? Now, I know that for localization, everybody has its own understanding and inputs, and I feel that you have also already asked part of the questions in your previous answer already. So maybe just give us a little bit like a deeper insights on how you understand the localization and how is it in your organization.
Yeah, very good. So if you see, the localization is the key of our the successful implementation in all these states. Most of the state program are being run by our local team. Hardly 1 or 2% have to move from Delhi, Mumbai to that particular state. Otherwise, the whole program is managed by the local team. In fact, in hiring also, we have hired the local member, the nursing staff, nursing assistant, housekeeping staff, everything from the local community. So it has localization helped us a lot, and it has impacted positively. The second thing is our travel cost has also reduced significantly, because earlier in the disaster response, we used to send our team from Mumbai or Assam to start the response, and then other team member joined. So the cost of the flight ticket and other travel is a big significant amount, sometimes even up to 15-20%. But this time, fortunately, thanks to the lockdown and this crisis, the travel cost reduced significantly. Plus, with the localization, what happened that the local people, they understand the culture, custom, language. So, and in this COVID crisis, when there are multiple stress, it's not just the disease, the economic crisis, the mental the anxiety among the patient as well as the family member. So to manage all these things, I think the local person who can speak their language and explain it, no organization or person from outside can match that. So I would say that, and it seems like this disaster is going to continue for few years more. So now without localization, without localizing our response and involving local community and CSOs, we can't continue this fight for long. It will be very costly if we don't localize the response. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravikant. You've already got questions, so I will let you take a rest and maybe think about the question, which we will, get back to in a few minutes. So I would like to turn to Ma. As you have already mentioned in your previous answers, there are a few changes in relating to how you coordinate at national level and subnational level, how you work with government, and also how funding works. That I think is all relevant to localization. Please share a bit more of your insights on that.
Thank you. As I mentioned that Muhammadiyah is the national language, national organization that has networked throughout the Indonesia. The localization is very important because at the national level, we cannot do anything. We do mostly on the policy development and then the advocacy to the government to support the way that we work. So we rely on the provincial and district level. That really changed, like I mentioned, for the health services. Our 80 hospitals throughout Indonesia providing the rehabilitation is even the health services, all the not only the COVID patient, but it's non-COVID patient as well. We still open for both. And this is very important to continue providing health protection to the people, and it's all done by the local. And then also the all the volunteers. If we total, we may have the 200,000 infestation, all the offices and buildings, places for worship, and also hand sanitizer and everything, including the basic needs or basic supplies, because starting March, because many people got unemployed. So we rely on the volunteer on the ground at the local level to distribute the basic supplies for the people in need, the vulnerable people, especially the women, the elderly, is very important, and also the disabled person as well. We not only provide the basic supplies, we also help them to get the livelihood. So the local is very important. Without local, we cannot do anything, because we cannot deploy the national team. They are there, and they speak their language, as Dr. Ravikant mentioned. In Indonesia, it also have 350 languages, so it's better to work with the local people to do the massive campaign, yeah, to limit the spread, and then to do the tracking and tracing. It's very important, the educational campaign and awareness using the local languages. So it's the local is very crucial. It's not only they are the volunteers, they know the language, and they also in the local, at the local. I mean, they are not moving, they live there. So it's very important to mobilize. And then the local is also can communicate with the national level. So here, the capacity of the local is increasing, like what Dr. Ravikant mentioned as well. So because of we give more, or not more authority, more chances, more opportunities to work with the way they respond. So there are many innovative ways. For example, how to fundraise, how to help the people with the urban farming, with the all the different type of the food security, for example. They have many innovation based on their localities. So the localization is not only in terms of the people at the local level, but the local way of responding, yeah, the local way of responding. So the indigenous wisdom in using, for example, to use their own herbal medicine, for example. Every region have the different way of addressing that. That's also important for health security. So it's the local the local knowledge is also important. So the local knowledge, the local resources, and the local reach out being very pivotal in the COVID response. And I guess it could be continued in the future, because we right now proving that the direction from the national is not always deployment. So we could have more on assistance and accompaniment through the webinar meeting, through the extensive WhatsApp group, for example. So it's also can increase the capacity of the local. I guess that's I highlight. I thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Amma. Yet again, proof that there's huge potentials for local led responses. And with that, I wanted to turn back to Jeremy for hard questions. I mean, for me, you know, every time when I talk to national and also local NGOs in this region, you know, one of the feeling that I have is always that I don't see, you know, much connection between, you know, the regional and global talks about, you know, about the localization, you know, about, you know, for example, the GHRP and, you know, their response. you know, what we had, you know, the conversation that we had just now, kind of, again, you know, somehow is another evidence that, you know, that GHRP, yes, it's important, you know, the structure is important, but you know, the response is carrying on and then increasing again. So, you know, how do you think, you know, like, the conversation of localization should carry on? You know, how do you think it's, you know, it relates to, you know, the ongoing GHRP, you know, and all those, you know, guidance that ISC has provided? How do you think that could connect? Yeah.
Thanks, Qingrui. Look, I think it's fair to say there's no doubt that localization has been right at the center of discussions around the response to COVID-19 from the global level all the way to the local level since the imperative to respond was initiated. And I think this is built on the existing trends in the space, in the sector around localization in recent years. It's too soon really to say if this crisis has been a success or a missed opportunity for strengthening local and national action. And I'm hopeful that some of the changes that we've seen, some of the ones that have been mentioned before, will actually result in longer term shifts in power dynamics in the sector and in the way that humanitarian action works. And it's really positive actually to hear from other panelists some of the specific examples on this topic from the national and the local level. And I think it's actually something that can be taken away by all the attendees in this discussion today, is to actually start to collect and share some of these examples. We need positive examples of how localization is actually unfolding in this COVID-19 context, because the information isn't flowing as freely as it may be used to around the activities of a really diverse range of humanitarian actors. So it really is a chance to take the opportunity to share stories and to provide evidence of the way that local actors are really leading this response, and help those of us in the policy space to actually amplify those messages to the global level as much as we can, and for as long as we can. I think with localization, as with other aspects, we are talking about an acceleration of existing trends. There's been a lot of engagement and advocacy by NGOs at the global level for the last few months. Really a significant number of reports, some writing by NGOs, lots of advocacy work towards the GHRP and other funding appeals and donor mechanisms. However, yes, there are still a lot of challenges. No doubt there's still challenges around funding. Direct funding to local actors is not necessarily improving. There's real issues around risk sharing and who bears the brunt of most of the risk during this type of a health-related response, compounding with a humanitarian emergency. And of course, issues around where decisions are made, and perhaps even some trends in the wrong direction in that space, because decisions are now made further and further away from the front lines in many cases, which is, you know, a really unfortunate consequence of the inability to travel and to move that we're seeing. I think also it's important to highlight that the recent discussions around racism and decolonization in the sector are really linked in some ways to localization discussions, and perhaps bringing a more political lens to what has been quite a technical discussion in recent years. And I think perhaps this may help to combine with the realities of the COVID-19 situation to move forward some of these particular difficult topics that have been talked about or talked around for a number of years. And I think now is an opportunity actually to address them quite deliberately and quite specifically. And we're seeing a number of stakeholders in the sector really taking that opportunity at the moment and moving forward with it. My final thought, I think, on the progression of localization is that where the mechanisms were working, where systems were in place to see improved practices, particularly at national and local levels, COVID has only reinforced that, has only expanded upon those. But where there were challenges, where there was a lack of a trusting operating space, or whether there weren't the good relationships in place, of course, it has made those situations more complex and more challenging. And I think we have to recognize that it is compounding existing stresses, but also potentially it is creating opportunities for existing good practice to be built upon. I know there was a question in the Q&A about the global perspective. I think, and whether INGOs have the motivation. I think it's hard to talk about INGOs as one collective group, but I would say, in my experience, the change over the last few years in the perspective of organizations on localization from small to large and across the board has been, it's now a topic that is openly discussed inside organizations across the board. That doesn't mean that the practice at the field level has changed always, but what we're seeing now is a case where, instead of this being a subject that some people chose to deal with and some didn't, every organization is now dealing with localization at some level. But of course, it may take some time for that to actually manifest in some change in the ways those organizations are working. And maybe some of those organizations are not necessarily going to come up with ideas that are in agreement with others. As Qingrui mentioned before, there's a lot of different perspectives on what this actually should mean in practice. And I think we have to acknowledge this, and we have to keep having the discussions, even when sometimes it might be a little bit frustrating to some who have been involved for a long time in these topics. Thanks.
Yeah, Jeremy, stay with me, because we have already had 2 questions, so maybe we can have an interactive session as well with some of the questions, because there are a few. Jeremy, since you already were speaking, then please also answer the other question just came in, how government officials can be involved in localization as well, localization modelist. Please.
Thanks. Get my video back on. Look, I think our other panelists are probably better placed to answer this question. ICVA's work, we are very much involved in engaging donors and in advocacy, and primarily in supporting NGOs at the national level through the NGO fora or the NGO networks to engage with governments. I think that the opportunities here are really clear, and the necessity is really clear to engage government, not only at the national level, but also at the provincial or the local level, to ensure that NGOs are seen, that their work is understood, that they are considered to be essential providers of assistance. And this has been a challenge in many cases, where even in some cases there are government policies at the national level that are quite supportive of humanitarian action. Not necessarily do these trickle down, particularly when communications are impeded. And so we can see that there's a bit of a need to unpack what government actually means and what levels of government we're engaging with, to make sure that is actually working all the way from the capital down to the field or the community level, where local leaders need to be just as much supportive of the work, and also understanding of the work that humanitarians are doing, of the risks and the challenges associated with that work, and also of the community perspectives on that work, which I've also seen come up in the Q&A, and I think is really important. But I'd also suggest that the other panelists, Amma and Dr. Ravikant, would have a lot more real world experience in this topic as well to share.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Jeremy. And that was my plan too, to also ask Amma the same question, as well as Dr. Ravikant, maybe very briefly, because we have a few other questions to attend to. Maybe Amma, would you like to take this first?
Mute. Okay, let me unmute. I forget. Okay, so I agree with what Jeremy said, that there is an opportunity to work closely with the government, and echoing how the government at the national level working with the subnational level. Unfortunately, not always in a good term. Sometimes there is a dynamic. The provincial and district level in Indonesia sometimes have their own policy guidance. So it's it's not always trickle down as mentioned, and this is also the opportunity for NGO to advocate this. So what we do is also echoing the policy at the national level into the subnational level. We always encourage the subnational level of our network, the Muhammadiyah at the provincial and district level, to always working with the government, so the government will recognize what our contribution and how actually working at the local level is very important. So the both at the national and the subnational level need to work together, because it's not always work if we always enforce at the national level. So it's also important, especially like the country like Indonesia, where there are many provinces and sub-districts, working at the district level, where we have 514 districts. So it's very important to advocate the engagement between the government and the NGO, and then how the NGO's contribution to for COVID response in various sectors, and also the funding involvement, because sometimes the government have funding and also resources, but they do not know how to disperse. The NGO have the volunteer, the ability to work with the community, but they do not, or lack of funding. So that's need to be met. So it's very important, I guess, the active, or I always say the active engagement is needed. So it's not only from the government side, but also NGO side need to engage with the government closely, and also demand the support, because sometimes the government do not know the need from the NGO who work closely with the community. So at local level, the engagement and then the exposure to the situation and the problem and challenges need to be put into the service. Thank you.
Sounds great, Amma. Also, Dr. Ravikant, you also mentioned that one of the very positive transformation is that Doctors for You are working closer with the government. Maybe you can also share some experience from your.
Yes, as Amma said, here in India also we have faced the same thing, that the more you interact with the government, the higher the chances that you will get the support. In fact, I'll give you just one example. In Delhi, which is the national capital of India, we are working with district magistrate of the South District of Delhi. And they have provided, like we are managing 500 bed isolation center, and we just have to mobilize the doctor and nurses. Rest everything, all they have put in millions and millions of money to build the infrastructure and all the medicine equipment, everything is available with them, but they were looking for the doctor and nurses to run the center. So we provided that the manpower, doctor and the nurses, to run the center, and that in this collaboration, that center is currently one of the most covered center in Delhi by national and international media, and is running very well. So most of the time we think government will not support, or they will, but the more we interact, we ask, actually government also facing the same problem which we are facing. So if we work together, then most of the time I found out of the 10 cases, 7-8 times they are very supportive, and they also put in resources. So, without government involvement, the local government, we can't think of localizing everything in true sense.
Yes, thank you. Problem solvers are always welcomed, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a few more questions in the box. So I may be, thinking that we still have some time. We can address one of them, which is raised by Surya. That natural disasters are killing many people in Nepal. A large number of people are suffering from livelihood and mental problems. So in such situations, how can civil society organizations help in the work of saving lives, humanitarian support? Also considering that COVID-19 is infectious and then maybe, will bring fear of, the community for the service delivery. So I wonder who from the panelists wants to go first for this question.
I can answer.
Amma. Yes,
okay.
Please.
Thank you. Yeah, because that's what we discussed as well with the government, since there are many natural hazards happen during the pandemic. So what we do in surfing, we also do the contingency planning and simulation, for example, for sheltering the people. How to still keep the physical distancing, still using the health protocols to do maskers. So we train the local emergency responder and the local other NGO who respond to any natural hazard to follow the protocol. So it's very important during for the sheltering and responding. You still follow the protocol. So it's not easy because during the chaotic situation, usually during the natural disaster, and then the pandemic hit, and then we have to always remind them to follow the protocols, the guidelines, and then we also try to have identify more shelter. For example, it used to be, for example, one shelter for 200 people. Right now it's only allowed for 30 because it's the capacity only 1/5. So we need more shelters. So we have to identify more resources to provide at least the shelters, and then the way the respond on health, for example, which hospital to respond for the natural disaster victims, and then which one is for the COVID, because we cannot mix them. So to avoid the spread and also the contagious. So this kind of the development is already developed by the government and also with the NGO. We work together to do the response. And then how to other example is also providing food, because of the basic utensils, for example, is not safe for COVID, for example. Then we are not distributing through the using the reused utensils, but we use the more environmental way by using banana leaf, for example, but it's always throw up. So it's the way we work for for responding hazard in the pandemic situation is changed, because we have to follow the
with COVID. So I would say now this is more or less clear that if we maintain the community or the humanitarian worker, if they do this 100% masking, follow social distancing norm and the 100% masking, social distancing and hand hygiene, then the risk of getting infection or reinfection is significantly reduced, and there is a risk associated everywhere in the life, even if you're traveling. So don't think too much about the risk, just think about following these three critical things of masking, social distancing and hand hygiene. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Doctor. I see there's another questions that raised by Yulia. If you don't mind, we can come back to the question a bit later, as maybe the question can also be answered as our discussion goes on. So let me quickly now jump to the third questions, which actually kind of being answered in the process already. So what are the challenges in adapting organization's operations during the transformation time, and also more importantly, what are some good good advices or plans? I know there are many challenges, so maybe for panelists, if you could stick to one or two the most difficult ones to start with. Let me maybe ask Amar to go first.
Yeah, there are many challenges, but I will point three challenges. First is the IT capacity, because the only way to communicate is with this, using the webinar like this, and it is very important to develop the good IT so we can communicate, because sometimes there are many cut off and everything. So if you don't have the IT, how you communicate? And for NGO, sometimes at the local level, IT is costly. So that's the most challenges, because especially for the volunteer or the troops on the ground, because they have to buy the data plan. It's a lot of many inexpensive, expensive to buy the data plan. And then the second challenge is the compliance on the guidelines. That's also the second challenge, is because not always what we've been working to make the protocol, to have the guidelines, it's not always followed by the members or the community in general. So it's not easy. So we have to expose them to all the education and campaign awareness all the time. So to maintain the level of compliance, it's the challenge. And then the third one is the issue, or the external issue that we call the inconsistency policy between the national, between the vertical or horizontal of the government, influence the government, influence the NGO. For example, the lockdown. Some are not applying lockdown, so other applying, although the area is in the border, for example. So it's always difficult to maintain the to follow the inconsistency of the policy, and then the policy of allowing to open the schools, for example. Although we are not opening, for example, an NGO, because we have many thousand schools, and it's difficult for us. That's a challenge for us if there are policy that changing that we cannot control. And sometimes we also have a pressure from the government to open the school that we don't want to open, for example. So this challenges the discipline in coordination. So we need to have the coordination more time. I mean, if we meet, it's easy to understand, but using the online coordination, sometimes it will take like more time and many time. I mean, the frequency of coordination is more rather than if we meet. So that's some of the challenges that we face. For example, in one of the program for education with the radio, we have to coordinate all the time and many times, because this is the only way we can communicate with the local network. That's all for now. Thank you. I offer to you.
Yeah, Amar, stay for 1 second. Just a follow-up question that you mentioned, that one of the challenges is any suggestions in how you address this challenge?
Well, in our experience is we always like putting the agenda. Try to divide into the different sector and to have the representative. At least, for example, in the Muhammadiyah COVID Command Center, we have the 5 division. In each division, they have to maintain the coordination at the sub-national level, and they have to maintain with the cluster at the national level. So we try to divide the section, and then we have the like the overall coordination. So the multi-level coordination have to be maintained. That's what we did. Sometime in a week we have so many meetings because we have to maintain the multi-coordination. And then the second is flexibility in coordination. Sometimes it's not Zoom. Sometimes we just use WhatsApp. In Indonesia, WhatsApp is very popular. So we use WhatsApp for coordination. And then if there is a urgent call, we use a more smaller calling meeting. So that's the multi-level. And then the second one, we have to be very disciplined. If we already assign every week or twice a week, then we have to follow. Once we miss the meeting, then we will miss the coordination. The third one, we have representative. In each different sector or cluster, we have representative to keep update. It is not easy sometimes because we are volunteer organization that the volunteer work in formal institution, so they cannot, but at least we have backup. So each sector, we have 2 person assigned to back up. If not, then we will ask the minute meeting to discuss for the weekly meeting. So we try to have the more flexible way of communication. Yes, thank you. Over to you.
Great. Thank you very much, Amma, for the very detailed answer. Let me turn to Dr. Ravikant then for the same questions. What are the main challenges and how do you tackle it?
Okay, thanks. So let me share my slide. So I have mentioned all the challenges and the good practices also which we learn in this crisis. So I will not repeat the topic which Amma covered. So the major challenges we face, as I said, our other non-COVID related projects like the cancer related TB, tuberculosis, maternal and child malnutrition, they now affected severely because of the lockdown and no movement possible by our staff. Many of our staff also got infected because of the COVID, and many are quarantined because they work with that staff. So initially in first 3 months we faced these, because now we know that this disaster is going to continue, and these isolation center, especially the bigger one, require lots of electricity. So now we requested one of our partners, Selco Foundation, and they supported. So we are running 150 bed COVID hospital fully on 15 kilowatt solar energy. Then the use of digital device and tools for monitoring and data entry of the program related data has also improved a lot. And another important thing which we learned is setting up one bigger center is and managing is much easier than multiple smaller isolation center. I will give you some of the example. You can see on the top. You can see the solar hospital. You can see the plate, and this is the even we have 5 ICU bed, and everything is on solar. At the bottom, you can see this the center which we established in Delhi with the Delhi government. So Delhi government expend lots of money, more than I think 4 crore rupees money. It's around 40 million Indian rupees, and they did all the infrastructure work, beds, equipment. We only guided them the way we wanted them to build a facility for us, and our doctor and nurses manage the facility. And as I said, see, these are the picture of the bigger facility. So managing 500 bed facility and the 50 bed facility is equally difficult. So if you expect more and more number of COVID patient coming up, then try to build bigger center. probably 200, 500 or 1000 bed capacity, not the smaller one. We have also converted wedding halls to Bag Wedding Hall, where we have converted into 100-bed isolation center. Then the waste disposal, as you know, the waste generated by this COVID hospital are highly infectious, and the rural area, tribal area, hilly area, disposing these PPE kit, mask, and other consumable is very difficult. The biomedical vehicle can't reach there. So we have developed, I will show you the picture, the unique thing where we have converted one to look a small incinerator, and we burn all the waste generated locally so that the chances of spreading infection can be minimized. The other thing is those staff who are actually treating COVID patient, we purposely selected those who are 35 years, whose age is less than 35 years, the young doctors, nurses without any comorbidities.
Hi, Dr. Ravikant. I think I lost you for a bit. Hello? Hello, Dr. Ravikant. I lost you. Maybe to save time, I would maybe ask Jeremy to start answer the question, and when Dr. Ravikant comes back, we can continue from there.
Sure, thanks, Qingrui. I think absolutely there are some very significant challenges, and particularly the critical need to address the flow-on effects of the mitigation measures against COVID-19, the disruption of ongoing humanitarian activities, protection, health, education, livelihoods. These have all been severely impacted in many, if not most, settings. And the consequences of that, as we've heard, including resurgence of other infectious diseases, missed vaccinations, increases in gender-based violence, closure of sexual and reproductive health services, loss of education and employment opportunities. And particularly one of the biggest impacts that's emerging now is a global increase in hunger, with some reports from WFP suggesting we may see up to double the previous rates of hunger worldwide due to loss of livelihoods, remittances, increasing food prices, inability to migrate or travel, etc. So these are very, very serious impacts. And on top of this, I think another key challenge is around assessments and access to data and information. The ability to conduct assessments in the usual ways not necessarily possible. So we need to look at changing the type and the amount of data collected in future, perhaps relying on secondary data or on assumptions and judgments or anticipations. But this is also then compounded by the fact that the extenuating impacts of COVID-19 and the compounding impacts on existing needs are not clear yet and are changing rapidly. So I think this is going to be a very complex issue to be dealt with, and there's going to be a lot of reliance perhaps on a more localized mechanisms for data collection and information sharing. And it will be very interesting to see what innovations are developed in that space over the coming months and into next year. And the other key challenge to highlight, of course, is around funding. The Global Humanitarian Response Plan is currently 23% funded, which is a little bit less than the level of funding for humanitarian needs globally, which is about 28%. However, last year, the total requirements for humanitarian needs was 28 billion, of which 63% was funded. This year, the total requirements is 40 billion. The 12 billion of the GHRP on top of the pre-existing requirements from the other ongoing humanitarian response plans. So this is a huge challenge, and I think that we have to acknowledge this challenge in terms of the ability of donors to meet the needs that are being outlined in the various response plans. We also moving in towards 2021, it's not that far away, and at this point we won't have a separate funding appeal through the GHRP. We will instead be working through the national level plans, which means the impacts of COVID-19 are not going to be considered as a separate issue, but rather as an additional compounding stress or vulnerability affecting the populations. And this may make sense in a planning modality, and it probably will make things a lot more clear at the national level, but it may also make raising funds for specific issues related to COVID-19 or compounding emergencies even more challenging and complex. So fundraising is going to be a huge concern moving forward, and I think something that many of us in the sector will need to really be paying attention to, and to engaging donors very proactively, but also to looking at what other innovations are out there, what other local mechanisms might be possible to try to supplement the funding to meet increasing needs. Over.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Stay with me for a bit. Yes, as you mentioned that from next year, which is only 4 months away, you know, the whole challenge of dealing with with COVID will be integrated into national plans. Just wonder, and maybe it's a question that is still a question, but just wonder, like, do you think there will be sort of like upgrading or changing in terms of how NGOs could?
Last year's guidance plus the COVID-19 additional considerations, and it refers back to my initial point, the at a national level, and where the mechanisms for engagement in these discussions are, because it's important to remember that the humanitarian piece of the pie is not the largest piece by a long shot when we're talking about the very significant economic impacts that the COVID-19 measures have had in many countries.
I think we lost Qingrui.
Yeah, I think we lost.
So
maybe we go back to you, Dr. Ravi, because we were interrupted.
Yes, I can. Yeah. So I was just sharing the challenges and the good practices. So we have developed local technique to dispose the biomedical waste disposal. Plus, all those staff who are actually going to see COVID patient, we recruited all those who are below 35 years of age, so that the chances of getting infected or severe disease is less. Then we recruited large number of nursing, ward boy and paramedic compared to the doctor. Because if you see the COVID, the bulk of the patient are mild, moderate, which does not require like very skilled treatment. So that we did. Then we have developed some SOPs for other NGOs or local organization to set up the COVID isolation center in their districts or block. Then we have also make a special arrangement for the women and children in these isolation center, like the separate ward for women and children and the play area for the children. That is very important. And then the use of pulse oximeter for high risk screening in the Mumbai. So I'll show you the photograph. So at the top right, you can left, you can see these the locally made small incinerator, you can say. So we cut the drum and all the waste, the highly infectious biomedical waste, we burn directly at the hospital site only. We don't have biomedical pickup facility available in this rural center. So this is very simple and can be done for the rural and tribal area. And as I say, you can see our team are very young, all below 35 years. We work with all the party line. At the bottom, these two leaders are from opposing party in India, but both are working together with us. And as I said, in the hospital, the more than doctor, nursing assistant, housekeeping staff, they required in a large number. Plus, in the initial phase, we also run this campaign, Protect the Protector, where we provided this PPE kit, gloves, and 95 masks to almost more than 40 to 50 public hospital across India. The one thing I especially wanted to mention is the need of women and children. In fact, we have reported cases of molestation and rape also in the COVID care center. So it's very important that you should construct a separate ward for the female and the children and separate for the male patient, and there must be some play area because the mental stress on the children is huge. All the schools are closed, and so it does not need any further explanation. So we have to focus on the needs of children and women. And with pulse oximeter, those whom the SpO2 level is less than 95, we send them for the further evaluation. So these are the few of the best practices. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ravikant, Dr. Ravi. Sorry, I lost my signal for a bit, but I managed to come back. Apologies for that. Just a very quick question for you, Doctor. I see that during COVID response, the capacity of your center, your organization also has expanded like very big. So how do you cope with it? And do you have more staff recruited, or you partner with people? How do you cope with it?
Yes, so very good question. In fact, the last 2-3 months were very difficult for us. So we have recruited. In fact, before the COVID, our total staff strength was around 200-250. But today, while I'm speaking, it's more than, I would say, 550. So more than whatever the pre-COVID staff. More than that, we have hired during this COVID, and bulk of them are the staff who are actually in the service delivery, taking care of the patient, nursing assistant, housekeeping, and the doctors. They form the bulk of these staff. And the local, as I said, this localization help us a lot. So most of the staff are local, and thanks to this crisis, it has built the leadership skill set of our second layer managers, and they are now leading the response in different states. So that's how, and we would also like to thank our donor partner who supported us and they quickly dispersed the money to start the response. So earlier they used to have long list of the due diligence to fill, and then but this time they are really fast. I must appreciate HCL Foundation and Wipro Foundation. They disperse is fast, and because of that, we are able to respond quickly. Thank you.
That's fascinating. Again, proven that flexibility is really needed in this special time. Now, this leads to my last question. Actually, it's rather, how do you really see, the future of humanitarian work, especially, like Dr. Ravikant, that you really mentioned that a lot of positive changes, with how Doctors for You are doing its work. Do you think this is going to stay even after? And what do you think about the future? Any insights?
Yes, so I have mentioned the 5 points. The future is, especially the next 1 or 2 years, is going to be very, very challenging. my biggest nightmare is this impending financial crisis. We are going to see lot more hunger, poverty, and malnutrition, and especially in the SAARC region, especially Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Nepal, we have large number of malnourished children. And with this financial crisis and reduced funding, I don't know what will happen. Many more thousands of children and mother can die if we don't do something for this. The second thing is the health. The one thing is now clear, that health is at the center of development. You can't ignore health, or especially public health. In India, we have like these private hospital, they used to run medical tourism. They call other the patient from African country and other nations to come in Delhi and Mumbai, get operate, and then go back to their country. And this time in COVID, they have literally shut down their hospital in the initial first event, and people were struggling to find a simple hospital bed and oxygen cylinder. So this is very much clear now, that if you want to resilient health system, you have to strengthen the public health system. You can't depend upon the private corporate hospital. They are for profit. They don't think about the money. Even if they are treating a COVID patient now under government pressure, they are charging huge, like the sometimes bills in millions of rupees, which is very difficult to like understand. The third challenge is the massive vaccination drive which we have to conduct. And here is the role of localization. If we don't strengthen our local organization, grassroots organization, because I expect that early first or second quarter of the 2021, we will have like vaccine ready. And this vaccine we have to give everyone, adult, children, women, everyone. And the first is starting with the healthcare worker, then elderly with the diabetes and other blood pressure, cardiac diseases, kidney diseases, all those who require. So how can government build this capacity suddenly, and any international organization? We have to involve local civil society organization to expand the capacity, so that once the vaccine is ready, we can immunize our community very fast, probably in a few weeks to months. Then the fourth point I want to say, UN agency needs to promote more localization. They are saying, but I'll give you one example, which actually I wanted to share at this platform since almost 2 years. So suddenly I saw that 2 years back in the UNICEF budget proposal, they have earlier they used to give 7% management cost to us. Suddenly they removed this 7% management cost, and that is only for the international NGO. So what crime we did as a local NGO? Why you are not giving without? So all these expenses, who will go? So I humbly request, if somebody is from UN agency, then you immediately reconsider this and provide at least 7% management cost to all local organization. And the last one is the need to flexibility in donor agency guideline, like the long list of due diligence and the reporting compliance. There are lots of jargons. We have to, and we just waste lots of time in understanding those jargons, filling those reports. But actually, it's better to come and see the site visit, interact with the people, and take direct feedback. How and the language is very important. As Amma said, in Indonesia, more than 350 languages. In India, it's in thousands. So somehow, like the English is definitely international, but we have to see that how we can include this the language or cultural barrier, reduce these language and cultural barriers, so that more and more grassroots organization and with like the smaller staff strength or funding support, they can also work with the international NGOs like UN agencies. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say, Qingrui.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ravikant. Points are all taken, and I think they are all very valid. Next, maybe let me ask Jeremy, what do you think the future of the humanitarian work, and especially considering, the dynamics right now, between NGOs and then the international system. Jeremy.
Thanks, Qingrui. Look, I think Dr. Ravikant has given a really great overview there. I guess the point I'd like to add most of all is that what I see looking into the future is the continued need for flexibility. If I consider 1 year ago, 8 months ago, none of us were planning for a response to this type of health crisis, and certainly none of us could have imagined that the consequences of this COVID-19 outbreak, even when it first started, would be as significant as they are. I think that we are talking about looking at changes in the sector. At the same time, we are dealing with changes in the global environment. And I think that adapting to what is yet to come in terms of the economic consequences, potential challenges around retreating from multilateralism or rising nationalism in some countries, around closed borders, inability of people to move as freely as they could, even where in many cases they could not move freely before. I mean, these are going to be really significant issues that the sector has to grapple with. And I think that there's going to be some need for some very serious discussions around the role that international norms and standards and guidance can play in the future environment when we are likely to be driven by more localized action. And I think that Dr. Ravikant has really summed up very, very clearly some of the key areas that's going to take place in. So what I think as the humanitarian sector, we really need to see that the sector is not separate or distinct from the macro changes in the global environment. And actually, it's going to be most important to acknowledge that and confront these linkages, but also to try to remember the guiding principles that are behind the humanitarian work, and somehow to match the idea that we still need to address the needs of those most in need as quickly and effectively as possible, but also to be able to make sure the sector is resilient and future-proof and adaptable, going to be felt throughout the next year, if not for many years to come.
Definitely, I really agree, Jeremy. And also, I think one of the challenges facing by all the humanitarians are really that we in most time we are reactive to a response, but now we have to be able, be more proactive in thinking, how we could lead, maneuver in the changes of the sector. I think that's really challenging, but meanwhile exciting. Let me turn to Amma for the same questions.
Thank you. I'm not going to repeat the very good key point that respect social and economical impact. Then it's need to close the nexus of development and humanitarian. We cannot right now work in the different sector. This is development, this is humanitarian, but how the linkage between development and humanitarian, because addressing the main issue of the impact of the COVID toward the social economy. And then the second is also the role of donors. I also echoing the more flexibility. So the donor that who also play it, the humanitarian or development have to work together in ensuring that all the program should be supported at the local level. Because the local, I mentioned and also mentioned by Dr. Ravikant, is the one who have the knowledge and then to speak the language, and then the party that need to be increase the capacity. Otherwise, if we face the similar problem, then we cannot respond anymore. And the third one, as many epidemiologists mentioned that in the future the health crisis or the pandemic could be happen again, or in the different form. We've already experienced the Zika, the SARS, MERS, and then the corona, the different type of corona. It could be in the near future, there will be another type of coronavirus. So we need to include this pandemic in part of the humanitarian in general, because many humanitarian responded right now, is especially in Indonesia, focusing on natural disaster and also man-made disaster, but it's not heavily focused on the pandemic and the health response. Therefore, I believe in the future, the humanitarian response that also covering the health crisis will be very important. This need to be put at the national, at the local plan as well, so they can always extend. And the third one is the more donors and NGO put the fund for the local organization. So I guess this is very crucial to develop the capacity of the local and national institution. So far, actually, we are lucky as Muhammadiyah has still got a trust from various donor and partner. We right now working with the DFAT Australia, USAID, UNICEF, WHO, that also working with us to support from the range or health services through the food security and also the social campaign, but more and more is needed as well to support for the long-term capacity improvement at the local level. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Amma. I really want to squeeze time for questions, but I think I failed it. Because we have 4 minutes left, and I understand some of the panelists have to jump off to other commitments. So I apologize again that I'm not able to answer the questions that in the question box. But I hope the discussions and also the insights provided by the panelists are helpful for your organization in your own operation, and also strategic considerations. And with that, I would like to really thank you again for all the three panelists, Amma, Dr. Ravikant, and Jeremy, for your really excellent insights. I also would like to thank two sweet ladies, Mada and also Lina, for your support in sign languages. I hope we didn't really go too fast. Thanks also go to you, all the participants, to stay with us for the 2-hour and very rich discussions. Thank you for all for the questions you posed. We'll be taking all the questions with us in our debriefing sessions. And a small advertisement as well here, that we will continue our webinar, as Dear already posted in the chat box, on September 3rd. So really stay tuned for that and stay with us as well. So with that said, I wanted to hand over to Dear to see if she has any last minute points to raise as well. But thank you very much again all.
Thanks, Qingrui.
Yep. Thanks, Qingrui, and very big applause to our discussion. I hope that everybody is clapping their hands now. So we have a very great discussion around the topic of humanitarian work transformation. And it was really good to have this discussion happening in the region, because I understand that there's not much discussion around this theme. So we are really lucky that we can we can discuss. So a little bit of advertisement. Qingrui already shared, and I also posted in the chat that please everybody join us again on 30th of September 2020, where we will have a very exciting next topic of webinar, which is children as vulnerable groups in the middle of conflict and domestic violence. And also for today's webinar, you can visit
Hi, dear. I think I lost you. Hi, I think we just lost dear for a second. But in any case, I think we could now close the webinar. And then thanks again to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you, Qingrui. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Thank you.